So these are the resources. And by the way, 17Lands, let me just show you if you're not already familiar with it, because generally speaking, we draft on this stream, and at the end of each draft, we try to do a retrospective on what went well, what went wrong during the draft, and try to understand how to better adjust reading the signals, the picks that we did, how the draft followed after that. So that's a bit the plan. We use the 17Lands application essentially to do just that. Traditional sealed, yeah. So as you can see, and let me just put this a bit bigger for everyone to see it better. We have essentially here we have the series of events that I played. As you can see, I haven't spent that much time playing Kaldheim. I spent a lot of time actually studying it and working on a series of resources for it. But yeah, this was the first. So I did a sealed back when it was launched, or close to when it was launched. I went 5-3 at the time. Now 7-2 and 0-2. This one. A best of 3. Actually, on one instance, the timer ran out. So essentially, I was explaining too well my plays, I guess. So the timer ran out when we were breaking the corner. And the second game, I was too greedy, which from time to time it happens on this stream. So yeah, and by the way, for example, in a draft, just for you to be aware, we can see the picks that are performed. I think pick one, yes, pack one, pick one data is still not available, but you have all the information like pack two, what we picked, what went through the table. You also have the information for what came back. Possible. This is possible main deck. The wheel need to go to what wheeled. Pick 9 is the first pack that wheeled, but again, no pack one, pick one information. So that's it. Known missing. It's really helpful to understand. For example, that green in this example was being taken, white to some extent. Even though I don't really understand how one picks these cards over Kaya's Onslaught, but this might be a bit earlier in the format. Either way, this is 17Lands. Let's move into the actual meat that we want to be reviewing today. So if you're not aware of it, during Saturday, the Arena Open will take place during the weekend. During the weekend, on Saturday, the event will be a sealed. There are actually 2 events, I believe. A sealed best of 3 and best of 1. Just looking into likelihood of succeeding, there are several factors that can push someone to play best of 1. That's generally accepted as the most likely way to get a good result. Not only, but also because a lot of beginners submit apply to that challenge instead of best of 3 because it's more complex. But if you have an edge with your pool, best of 3 might you can't actually see the pool and then decide best of 1 or best of 3. That would be the best thing ever, but that's not really fair. So the suggestion is to play best of 1. I will be playing best of 1 on day 1 and best of 3 the second day. If one qualifies, second day is best of 3 only. As such, today we will be looking mostly at the data related to best of 3. That's also where the best players typically are playing, generally speaking, because you don't have ranked sealed games nor in best of 1 nor in best of 3. So if it's all the same, you play on what gives you a bit more bang for the buck or more training, I guess. So we'll be looking into data related to that. The first, there is a series of tools then, or analytics that 17Lands has, and because they crawl this information from so many people, it's actually easy for them to get a good overall picture of how the format is evolving, what matters, what does not matter, what works, and so on. So we'll be looking into all these entries. The first one is relates to color performance. Okay, we have some parameters that we can pick here. So we're interested in Kaldheim, traditional, sealed, all time. Unfortunately, I can pick like the past 2 weeks or something. That would be really helpful in this situation. So yeah, two color. Okay, so this shows us. Oh, I wished. Why? Yeah, unfortunately, I cannot really sort this. I cannot sort this by win rate, I guess. 4 colors, all decks. Okay. I guess this is sorted by win rate, but ascending order, which is a bit awkward, to be honest, but it's fine. So 2 color decks, let's first look into how many colors and what's the win rate associated. 2 colors 54.9, 2 colors plus splash 55.2, so slightly higher, but I don't want to get into confidence intervals and that kind of stuff, but I'm not sure if the difference is that meaningful. That's the only thing. 54.4 3 colors, 57.3 3 colors plus splash, 55.5, 55.2. So there seems to be something about playing a bunch of colors in this format that is successful. Let's say the sample size is actually quite meaningful in all entries between wins and losses. So a color mesh seems to work. And if you have been preparing for the event, probably you are already aware of this. So let's look into 2 colors. The most successful deck is actually Boros, which makes sense because even though the sample size is not huge, but it definitely makes sense to Boros being the most successful 2-color deck, because there are essentially 2 predominant decks on this sealed format. There is really aggro deck, really focused, like almost draft look-alike deck, and Boros is the best one, probably at that, because the other deck the other kind of decks are much slower. They play a bunch of colors. They don't have that much early game typically. They foretell some stuff, but they don't commit to the board that often, or at least meaningful stuff on the up to turn 6 or whatever. So that's why Boros has a chance to getting under. And it's actually interesting to get confirmation from data that about the stuff that for example, I've been reading about elsewhere. So Boros seems to be really well positioned. Then this is not sorted. This is not sorted. Yeah, this one is also not sorted actually. So the actual most common deck is Simic, which is Snow. And the thing about Snow, as you can see, the sample size is quite small, but it's quite successful. If you have a good Simic pool, that will work very well for you for sure. But the sample size is much smaller than, for example, the Boros, and there's actually others that are interesting, like Rakdos, which is also typically an aggro deck, right? And you can see that the sample size is actually quite significant. Regarding 2 colors plus splash, we have Orzhov, but the sample size is not huge. But yeah, if you're double spelling and you have you mash around a bunch of cheap stuff, this deck is very, very powerful. We went to 7 wins with it. But then, of course, one of the most common ones is Simic plus Splash. Other very powerful decks. Golgari plus Splash makes sense. 3 colors. We actually, okay, we don't have that much data for 3 colors, I guess. We have some for Timur, but Timur again makes sense. Oh, yeah, good question. So this is 17Lands aggregates data. And hi, by the way, Gomez, thank you for joining us. This is 17Lands aggregated data from a bunch of different players, right? And with that data, they are able to know, okay, this deck that was Simic plus Splash, did it win? How many games did it win? And how many games did it lose? And then they they aggregate all that data from multiple players, right? And compile this sort of analytics on top of that. So my data probably is considered somewhere here. For example, I played this sealed. So this is 3 colors. This is Jund. I played this Jund deck at some point. So it's probably counting towards this. Okay, so I have 2 losses or 1 or whatever, and 7 wins. So Jund, or actually Jund. So I'm counting towards this bucket. Thank you, Gomez. Thank you. Moving on, Orzhov, we already saw that. Then what's interesting? Esper, white, blue, black. Okay, okay, but the sample size is quite small. Timur is very, very relevant here. The colors with the most snow are Timur plus black. So all colors excluding white, with black and red having to a lesser extent. But there's one very important thing about red, and something that we'll touch on a few minutes, which is the existence of Svela. If you don't know Svela, let's just Scryfall. Let's Scryfall. But yeah, Svela is a bomb in this format because, like, the games go long. You have plenty of time to build, to create a bunch of colorless snow artifacts. These snow artifacts pump all the rest of your snow matters creatures, which you might find many in this color pair. And then at some point, if you get to 8 mana, which is not that unusual on sealed events, you start filtering through your cards like crazy. So you essentially do whatever you want with that card advantage. So that's Timur for you. Nothing else interesting. Then we have Band plus Splash, so green, white, blue. There are still some white cards that are interesting, but we'll look into that in a bit later. Jund, of course, plus Splash, as we were seeing. And we also have Timur plus Splash. So Jund, Timur, those are the combinations of colors that you should be thinking. So again, if you have a really aggro pool that you can, but it's very important to have some ingredients in that aggro pool. So a bunch of 2-drops. If you don't have enough 2-drops, but you have aggro 3-drops, that's not enough typically. Okay, you need to get damage in as soon as possible. It's very, very common. I've seen it plenty of times that decks, like you start playing your stuff on turn 3 or something, and you're already behind enough that your opponent at some point will stall the board, and they have plenty of late game, so you're screwed. That cannot happen. Decks are typically much more control-ish in this format. So it's either that, if you have a pool that supports that, great. Or if you have a pool that supports this snow, multicolored, might not even be that much snowy type, that's even better. So next resource, what we have here. here we have cards performance, and this is something really interesting. And we'll look into the different rarities. Okay, let's look at rare. Let's start at mythic. Actually, it would be interesting to have mythic and rare. I want. So I will skim over this table, okay, just for the sake of brevity. But it's actually something quite interesting for you to analyze afterwards, because there is a lot of info here, like what's the win rate when it's drawn, what's the win rate when it's played in the deck, what's the win rate when the you get the card on the first seven cards that you draw at the beginning of the game, right? All that stuff gives you different win rates for the deck, for the decks that the card is included, right? So we are interested. So let me just check. This is win rate in end. I don't want that. I want win rate not drawn in opening end. Yeah, okay. Opened or drawn. Actually, it's what I want to look at. So we will just look into gain. Win rate gain essentially when drawn or in the opener hand. Why is there no? There is no data here. Okay, sure. I don't care. Let's just look into all the cards and see what actually matters. So, okay, now we're looking to all cards from all rarities. Hey, your leech, thank you for joining. So today we're starting. We'll do a sealed event, but first we're looking to a bunch of 17Lands's data that they collect from like all the users that have the app installed, and it's pretty interesting. We already looked into what are the most successful color pairs for the Arena Open. Now we're looking into the most successful cards in the sense of what's their win ratio when on the opener end or drawn. At the top we see Ezika's Chariot. This card is very good because it's like for 4 mana you get 6 power on the board. You can immediately use the vehicle next like on your opponent's turn to block. It's very, very good. Spirit of the Elder card. You generally speaking play with a bunch of double lands at least, and more often than not with all the snow lands that you can fit on your main colors. So a spirit, given that it even fixes your mana on turn 4, it will get pretty big. Imagine if you have a spell or something like that, because it counts for snow permanents, okay? +1/+0 for each snow permanent. Snakeskin Veil seems to be performing quite well, interestingly enough. It would be interesting to compare that with the other win ratios that we have around, but still, I guess protecting your stuff, it's important in sealed. Scampfire Elder Hall. So what matters here is, as you can see, green, green, green. Of course, we have Immerstorm Predator. That's broken. Even the snow cover. This is actually pretty funny. I didn't see previously. So if you draw the games that you draw a snow-covered forest, you win 61, or like the average is 61.5% win ratio, which is just like you draw land. That's such a bomb. I'm so happy. It's funny what snow does to your deck. Finn. The thing about Finn is if you manage to play it early, get a bunch of attacks, then even maybe even play something that gives Finn evasion, like the flying artifact. That's a way to get to actually win via poison counters. I lost at least a game to that. So yeah, as you can see, but it's also interesting to see. So Shepherd of the Cosmos is actually pretty high because it's a 2-for-1 by definition typically, but it works better on decks that are closer to the ground. You might not have a 2-drop on the graveyard to take advantage of this card, so it fits really well the kind of Boros decks. So these lands are very powerful, as you probably guessed. If sometimes they might even be splashable, like if I don't play with red, but I have some ways to splash red, plus this card, plus and one of my main colors is green. That's something to consider. Assure of the Fallen, Poison the Cup, Binding of the Old Gods. So yeah, you already get the picture. You can also get into 17Lands and explore this a bit for yourself. As always, feel free to join what I'll be sharing, the Discord channel. We're using it to discuss a bunch of strategies, and we'll be pretty active during the weekend. Yeah. Moving on. Otherwise, we won't have time to do the sealed event. Here we're looking into the card evaluation metagame. What is this exactly? Each player or each person with an account on 17Lands is able to actually go to account and card tiers and actually get the cards into tiers. For example, Kaldheim. I don't do that here. I do it elsewhere, but still. You can like drag the cards around. I'll give this card, for example, Wings of the Cosmos, whatever. It's a sideboard. It's actually probably it's just a D minus, a D plus. I mean, but yeah, you can. People come here. They edit these things, and then there's like the metagame, the analysis of all the ratings that people give to their cards. What is interesting to see here? So we only have ratings basically for Premier Draft, I think. This is from it's the evolution from the whatever. It's the evolution since the beginning of the format, I guess, because this is 2021. Yeah, so beginning of the format. We see that at the top we have Bound in Gold. So this is a very relevant white card. If you it's splashable, so consider that. Stalwart Valkyrie, it's also very, very good. For sure. Like paying 2 mana for a 3/2 flying creature. It's great. But for the context of sealed, you need your curve to be a bit closer to the ground to be able to use this. Iron Verdict, it's an effective removal. It's very useful in sealed because you might not be attacking that much. You might need to sideboard it out or in whatever if needed. Then we have the Pegasus. It's useful if you have enchantments like sagas and stuff like that can take advantage of it. Otherwise, it's not that useful. Then we have Battlefield Raptor, which is it's not crucial, but it's a very relevant piece on an aggro deck. But as you can see, these 3 at the top are really separated out from the rest. Looking into blue, we have 4 cards clearly at the top, and then the rest. And I actually think we have Behold, then Augury Raven. I think this is the worst of the 4 right now. Bergstrider is very powerful and very relevant in sealed. Mistwalker, I would say it's the second best common. It's very effective at blocking. It's very effective at attacking. This card just does it all. It's relatively resilient to a bunch of forms of removal. So altogether, very, very important card. And still 3-drop, which is actually quite low for the format. Oh, sorry. Oh no, your leech. Thank you for warning me. For some reason I touched the microphone and it went away. So I was saying, thank you very much. Thank you. I was saying that, yeah, clearly Feed the Serpent is clearly far and away from everything else in black, and that's the issue with black. All the rest of the cards are actually pretty bad. Like Jarl is reasonably good, Elderfang Disciple, because as games tend to go long, card advantage tends to matter. Bear in mind that things that make your opponent discard card are very useful in sealed, because they will typically be holding their bomb like up to turn 6 or something like that. And if you manage to make them discard the bomb on turn 5, targeting turn 5, 6 is what you should be doing. Still, this creature you might play early, but it's not that relevant in sealed. Its body, it's meaningless. Moving on from black into red. Red, we have a nice spread up above. It's also interesting to like zoom out and understand the curve. Like in blue we saw 4 clearly at the top and the rest at the bottom. In black we saw 1 clearly at the top and the rest in the bottom. Here we have Demon Bolt, exactly the bolt that I was talking about. It's great. It's great. Frostbite, second place. It's still very relevant. You generally, it's a bit expensive or you need to commit a bit to snow to get it to work, but still. Squash, so removal at the top, as it's typical for green. Then actually to Scary Firewall, which is still relevant in sealed, because you can get a lot of card advantage from this card, and card advantage really matters. Other than that, okay, we already saw this. We're missing green. Green. So at the top, Sarulf's Packmate. As you can see, that it has been rising a lot, because again, drawing cards really matters here. Struggle, the removal spell for green, right? Sculptor of Winter, because snow is really good. And then we have a bunch of these agglomerate of stuff. Like Glittering Frost is definitely very useful, both in sealed and in drafting snow. Ravenous Lindworm, it's the same in both places. It works very well. Eyesight Troll, very interesting. Medium snow demands, so I would say 6 snow or 6-7 snow lands at least. Masked Vandal, it's just having like sagas and equipment removal pegged to a creature that is actually playable and helps you get into the late game. It's actually quite good. Multicolor, and we're just looking into the commons, by the way. There are no multicolor commons. So let's look into the uncommons now. Whoa, there are so many uncommons? Really? Okay. Poison the Cup at the top. Binding. Spirit. Vengeful Reaper. Yeah. It definitely makes sense. But yeah, these cards are very good. Svel is at the top. It's even higher on sealed. So yeah. Still, it's important to know how to filter the commons that matter from the commons that don't matter in sealed, because that's what enables you to understand, okay, where's my support for the bombs that I opened? Can I actually play them? Do I have support on those colors? What colors am I splashing, and what colors are my main colors, right? So that is relevant. Now we're almost wrapping up. Now we have play, draw, advantage. This is just something to keep in mind, and it's useful to compare with other formats, but it's even more than that. If you're used to play some drafts, it's helpful to know that sealed Kaldheim. And by the way, I should have started by explaining what we're looking at. On the x-axis, we have the game win rate on the play. So how much it matters to be on the play. As you can see, for some formats like Kaldheim traditional draft, being on the play seems to be really, really crucial. Or at least very, very important, right? While for sealed, this is... how's it called? Whatever, the Egyptian set that I forgot the name. It seems to not be beneficial to get Amonkhet. Exactly. Thank you, your leech. Thank you very much. And Amonkhet remastered. Okay, so that's why the R is there. So yeah, it seems to not be beneficial to be on the play. And then on the y-axis, we have the average number of turns. This is actually something very interesting. Of course, as we would expect, sealed takes longer than the average draft, right? And as you can see, the games typically go to 9.6, 9.7 turns, so between 9 and 10, typically 10 turns. So the games tend to go really late. As you can see, the cluster is centered here for the formats. It's actually pretty funny that I don't know how much data they were collecting at this time. That also influences it for older sets. But like sealed M21 was like slow as it can get. And finally, we can also look into some specific decks that have been performing very well. So they have a list of the recent trophy decks. Let me actually just refresh the list to get the most up-to-date information. I'm looking here into Premier Draft, but let's switch to Traditional Draft. And what's interesting to see here, actually it's quite interesting to see. Okay, green is still very, very present, but there's a bunch of Rakdos decks that have been successful in the past few hours. So what I typically like to do is, okay, let's actually try to understand how the decks look like. I don't really draft. I don't even know. Okay, draft is probably the sealed pool. And let's look into a Rakdos deck too. So here, as we can see, so this deck seems to have a bunch of snow matter stuff. Okay. Snow relevant bodies, that's very important. A bit of removal. If you need to have relevant creatures to use this removal, but still very, very useful. Old Growth Troll, okay, that's a bomb. Broken Wings is main deckable, generally speaking, depending on what you're doing. This is traditional draft, so you might not opt to play this main deck, but it depends on what other cards do you have to pair it. Dwarven Hammer. So this is a bunch of a mixed bag, right? But Glittering Frost plus the snow stuff make the Spirit very good. Cerul's Packmate is very good. Demon Bolt, Squash. Squash is actually playable at 5 mana, okay. Blizzard Brawl, another fight spell, a slightly worse, I believe. This... Okay, maybe I'm looking into the wrong thing. Traditional sealed, guys. Traditional sealed, that's what I wanted to look at. I was finding it weird to have a sideboard that small. So now this makes a bit more sense. So things that you can notice immediately. Green is in virtually every top deck, right? You can scroll down. There is a Boros deck here. Again, you can manage to play Boros, but your pool really needs to help on that. But other than that, it's green, whatever, splashing, 3 colors, everything goes, right? Let's look into this Boros build. As you can see, 5 2-drops, which is a pretty decent number. And I would say that you need something like that. Your curve should be around these two, and still a few 1-drops. So if you put the 1-drops here, this goes to 8 cards that you can play before turn 3, before turn 3. and are relevant. Sigrid, this of course, this if you're attacking this creature is great. You remove the attacker, and if your creature has trample, it works like wonders. Demon bolts and efficient removal like frostbite. It's really crucial to make sure that you're putting the pressure on your opponent as early as possible. Dwarven Hammer is great. It's like if I don't have Runamox nor Dwarven Hammers, I'm highly unlikely to play an aggro deck. Having ways to push damage and to be able to attack with all your creatures, or at least a big creature with a trampler, is really important to have success here. An Iron Verdict, I guess that had to be included. Again, no tapped lands virtually other than Shimmer Drift Veil. Just because it helps on fixing sometimes. But yeah, this is like Stalwart Valkyrie, as we reviewed previously. This is quite relevant with your 2 and 1 drops, which this player seems to have. But then we have the green builds, right? Let's look into this last one, like 4 colors madness. And bear in mind, white shows here and there, but it's definitely not common among these builds. Yeah, Immersturm Predator, Agar, I'm not sure how relevant this was. Bergstriders are awesome. Harald, so I guess Svel is very, very relevant. So yeah, as you can see, these are essentially the 2 kinds of decks. You can take a look and try to understand, okay, what works, what doesn't, try to question your beliefs from this data. And other than that, I actually shared a tweet yesterday with all the resources that I've been compiling. It actually had a lot of traction. I never in my wildest dreams I imagined so many people would look into that. But yeah, if you're interested, you can follow me on Twitter, and you'll easily find it there. And I actually also share this stuff on the Discord channel. I truly hope that you learned something from the article today, because I sure did. So if you want to find the link for it, it is in the About section just below the video. If you enjoyed this kind of content, make sure to leave a like, to subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you know when the next one comes up. Also, let me know in the comment section down below, what are you working on, or what do you want to work on to take your game to the next level. I also stream on Twitch, so if you want to interact with me live, head over to twitch.tv/DiogoJapinto. We're building a truly awesome community in there, and we would love to have you around. Thank you for joining, and see you next time. Planeswalking out!